The alley smelled like blood and rain. Lena's vision blurred as fingers tightened around her throat, slamming her against the wet brick. She couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. This was how it would end, in the dark, behind a restaurant dumpster, while the city moved on without her. Then a voice cut through the chaos, cold, controlled, deadly. Let her go. She didn't know who he was, didn't know that stepping into his world would change everything. But in that moment, between violence and salvation, Lena Carter made a choice that would rewrite her entire life. Stay with me until the end. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Hit that like button and let's begin. The night Lena Carter's life shattered for the second time began like any other, with exhaustion, stale coffee, and the weight of survival pressing down on her shoulders. She wiped down the last table at Marcello's, the upscale Italian restaurant where she'd worked double shifts for the past 3 months. Her feet ached in worn sneakers, and her lower back throbbed with that familiar burn that told her she'd been standing too long. Again. You heading out, Lena? Marco, the head chef, called from the kitchen doorway, his kind eyes crinkled with concern. The same look everyone gave her these days. Poor Lena, struggling Lena, broken Lena. She hated it. Yeah, just finishing up, she called back, forcing brightness into her voice that she didn't feel. See you tomorrow. Get home safe. If only it were that simple. Lena grabbed her jacket from the employee closet, checking her phone as she headed toward the back exit. One message from Mrs. Chen, her neighbor who watched Noah after school. He ate dinner, fell asleep during homework again. Don't worry. But Lena always worried. That's what happened when you became a mother overnight to a traumatized 8-year-old who hadn't spoken in 6 months. The November air hit her like a slap as she pushed through the heavy metal door into the alley. The temperature had dropped since her shift started, and her thin jacket did nothing against the cold that seeped into her bones. She pulled it tighter, breath misting in front of her face as she hurried toward the main street. The alley behind Marcello's wasn't long, but it was dark. The street lamp at the far end had been broken for weeks, and the restaurant's security light had burnt out days ago. Lena had complained to Marco, who'd promised to call maintenance, but nothing had changed. She should have been more careful, should have waited inside, should have asked one of the line cooks to walk her out. Should have, could have, would have. The story of her life. She was halfway through when she heard it, footsteps behind her, moving faster than hers. Heavy, deliberate. Lena's heart kicked into overdrive. She quickened her pace, fingers fumbling in her purse for her pepper spray. Where was it? Why could she never find anything in this damn bag? Lena. She froze. That voice? No. Not here, not now. Not after everything. Did you really think you could just disappear? She spun around, and there he was. 6 months of peace shattered in an instant. Derek stood 10 feet away, backlit by the distant glow of the street. He looked different, thinner, harder, with wild eyes that spoke of desperation and something worse, something unhinged. How did you find me? Her voice came out smaller than she wanted, weaker. He smiled, and it was all wrong. You think I wouldn't? You think you can just take what's mine and run? Noah isn't yours. He was never yours. Lena's hand finally closed around the pepper spray canister. The court said, "Fuck what the court said!" Derek lunged forward, closing the distance between them in 3 strides. That kid is family. My brother's son. You had no right. Your brother is dead. The words ripped out of her. And you hurt him. You hurt both of us. I had every right to get us away from you. Derek's face twisted with rage. I gave you everything, a place to stay, money, protection, and you repaid me by stealing my nephew and filing a fucking restraining order? You broke my arm. Lena's voice shook. You put me in the hospital twice. You threw a chair at Noah. He needed discipline. He needed safety. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not in front of him. Never again. Stay away from us, Derek. I mean it. If you come near us again, you'll what? He stepped closer, and Lena raised the pepper spray. Derek laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. You think that's going to stop me? You think anything is going to stop me from getting back what's mine? He's not yours. Neither are you, Derek snarled, but that didn't stop me before. He moved faster than she anticipated. The pepper spray fell from her hand as he grabbed her wrist, twisting it behind her back with practiced cruelty. Pain shot up her arm, and Lena cried out, struggling against his grip. "Let me go!" "Not until we talk." His breath was hot against her ear, reeking of alcohol and rage. "Not until you understand that you don't get to just walk away from me." "Derek, please." She tried to pull free, but he was stronger. He'd always been stronger. "You're going to tell me where you're living. You're going to bring Noah to me this weekend. And you're going to drop that restraining order, or I swear to God, Or what?" Lena kicked backward, her heel connecting with his shin. He cursed, loosening his grip just enough for her to wrench free. She ran. 3 steps. That's all she got before he caught her again, this time by her hair. He yanked her backward with brutal force, and Lena's feet slipped on the wet pavement. She went down hard, her palms scraping against the concrete as Derek dragged her into the deeper shadows. "You think you can fight me?" His voice was pure venom now. "After everything I did for you, everything I gave you?" "You gave me bruises!" Lena twisted onto her back, trying to see him in the darkness. "You gave me nightmares! You gave Noah trauma he may never recover from!" Derek's hand connected with her face, a sharp, stinging slap that made stars burst behind her eyes. "Ungrateful bitch!" She tasted blood, felt it on her lip, warm and metallic. This was it. This was how it would end. In a dark alley, alone, while Noah slept safely in Mrs. Chen's apartment, never knowing what happened to the aunt who'd promised to protect him. Derek's hands found her throat. Lena clawed at his fingers, fighting for air that wouldn't come. Her vision began to blur at the edges, darkening from the outside in. She could hear him talking, something about teaching her a lesson, about respect, about knowing her place, but the words were growing distant, muffled by the roaring in her ears. She was going to die. Then, light, sudden and blinding, flooding the alley from somewhere behind Derek. Car headlights, she realized distantly. Someone had pulled into the alley. Derek's grip loosened slightly, his head turning toward the light. "The fuck?" "Let her go." The voice was quiet, almost conversational, but something in it made Derek's hands fall away from Lena's throat completely. She gasped, dragging in air that burned her lungs, coughing violently as she rolled onto her side. Through watering eyes, she could make out shapes. Derek standing, backing away, and beyond him, a figure stepping out of the light. "This is none of your business," Derek said, but the bravado was gone from his voice. He sounded uncertain now, almost afraid. "You're in my alley." The man moved closer, and Lena could finally see him. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing an expensive coat that looked out of place in the grimy alley. His face was shadowed, but she could make out sharp features and dark eyes that seemed to assess everything in a single glance. "Behind my restaurant, hurting someone on my property. That makes it very much my business." "Your restaurant?" Lena's mind struggled to process through the pain and fear. This man owned Marcello's? "Look, man, this is just a domestic thing," Derek said, raising his hands placatingly. "Me and my girl just having a discussion. She's not your girl." The man's tone didn't change, but something in it made Derek flinch. And that wasn't a discussion. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know what I saw." The man took another step forward, and 2 more figures emerged from the shadows behind him. Large men, silent and watchful. "I saw you assault her. I heard her tell you to let her go. I watched you ignore her." Derek's eyes darted between the 3 men, calculating. Lena could see him weighing his options, his hands clenching and unclenching at his sides. "This isn't over," Derek said finally, pointing at Lena. "You hear me? This isn't—" "Leave." 1 word. Quiet and absolute. Derek hesitated for only a moment before turning and running, his footsteps echoing off the alley walls until they faded into the night. Silence fell, broken only by Lena's ragged breathing. The man moved toward her slowly, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. When he crouched down to her level, Lena finally got a clear look at his face. He was younger than she'd expected, mid-30s maybe, with dark hair and darker eyes that studied her with an intensity that should have been frightening, but somehow wasn't. His features were sharp and aristocratic, handsome in a cold, untouchable way. This was a man used to control, to power. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Lena touched her throat where Derek's hands had been, already feeling the bruises forming. I've had worse. Something flickered across his face. Not quite emotion, but close. Can you stand? She nodded, not trusting her voice. When she tried to push herself up, pain lanced through her wrist, the one Derek had twisted. She must have made a sound because the man was suddenly there, his hand under her elbow, supporting her weight as she got to her feet. Careful, he said. Up close, she could smell his cologne. Expensive, subtle, completely at odds with the violence that had just occurred. She could also see the details she'd missed before. The perfectly tailored suit under his coat, the watch that probably cost more than she made in a year, the ring on his right hand with a crest she didn't recognize. This wasn't just the restaurant owner. This was someone important, someone dangerous. Thank you, Lena managed, stepping back from his touch. I need to go. My nephew is waiting. That man will come back? I know. She'd known it since the moment Derek appeared. The restraining order was just paper. It didn't stop anything. You need protection. Lena laughed, a short, bitter sound. I need a lot of things. Protection isn't exactly in my budget. The man studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a business card. Simple. Expensive. Just a name and phone number. Adrian Russo. Her blood went cold. She'd heard that name. Everyone who'd lived in the city for more than a month had heard that name. Adrian Russo, the man who controlled half the construction contracts, who had politicians in his pocket, who made people disappear when they caused problems. Adrian Russo, the crime boss. She started but couldn't finish. I'm someone who can keep you safe, he said simply. That man laid hands on you in my territory. That's an insult I don't tolerate. I can't. Lena backed away, shaking her head. I appreciate what you did, but I can't get involved with... You're already involved. His voice remained calm, almost gentle. The moment he attacked you here, you became my concern. The question is whether you're practical enough to accept help when it's offered. Help from you comes with strings. Everything comes with strings. Adrian pocketed the card since she wouldn't take it. But my strings are transparent. Work for me, let me protect you and your nephew, and in return you're under my umbrella. No one touches you. No one threatens you. No one hurts you again. Work for you doing what? What you're already doing, serving at the restaurant, being visible, reminding people that I protect what's mine. What's mine? The word sent a chill down her spine. I'm not yours, Lena said quietly. No, Adrian agreed, but you could be under my protection. There's a difference. And if I say no? He shrugged slightly. Then you go home to your nephew, and you hope that man doesn't find you again before the police do. You hope the restraining order means something. You hope that the next time, someone else will be there to intervene. Lena's hands were shaking. She clenched them into fists, hating how weak she felt. How scared. I need to think about it. Of course, Adrian gestured to one of his men. Marcus will drive you home. It's late. I can take the bus. You're bleeding and limping. Let Marcus drive you. It wasn't really a request, Lena realized. This was what Adrian Russo did. He gave orders disguised as suggestions, and people followed them because the alternative was worse. She was too tired to argue. The drive home was silent. Marcus, a mountain of a man who probably served as muscle when needed, drove with surprising care through the late-night streets. Lena watched the city pass by through the window, her mind racing. Adrian Russo had offered her protection. Protection she desperately needed but couldn't possibly accept. Because men like Adrian Russo didn't do anything for free, and whatever price he'd eventually demand would be far higher than she could afford to pay. But what choice did she have? Derek had found her, despite changing her phone number, despite moving 3 times in 6 months, despite being so careful. He'd found her. And he'd come at night, when she was alone and vulnerable, in a dark alley where no one would see, except someone had seen. We're here, Marcus said, pulling up in front of her building. It was a rundown apartment complex in a neighborhood that hovered somewhere between working class and poverty. Not the worst area in the city, but far from the best. Thank you, Lena said, reaching for the door handle. Miss Carter? Marcus's voice stopped her. When she turned back, he was holding out a phone. Sleek, new, definitely not hers. Mr. Russo wanted you to have this. It's secure. His number is already programmed in. If you need anything, or if that man comes back, you call him. Lena stared at the phone like it was a snake. I didn't agree to anything. No, Marcus agreed. But Mr. Russo takes care of his people. Whether you've agreed or not, you're under his watch now. That man threatened you on his property. That makes this personal. She took the phone because refusing seemed pointless. Marcus would just leave it anyway. Her apartment was on the third floor upstairs that creaked with every step. Mrs. Chen opened her door as Lena approached, concern written across her weathered face. You're late, the elderly woman said. I was getting worried. I'm sorry. There was trouble at work. Not quite a lie. Mrs. Chen's eyes narrowed, taking in Lena's disheveled appearance, the bruises forming on her throat. What kind of trouble? The kind that's handled now. Lena hoped that was true. Is Noah asleep? Like a stone. That boy exhausts himself trying to stay awake for you. Mrs. Chen's expression softened. You're a good aunt, Lena. His parents would be proud. The words hit harder than they should have. Noah's parents, Lena's sister Sarah and her husband Marcus, had died in a car accident 8 months ago. Sudden, brutal, final. One moment Lena had a sister she called twice a week, and the next she was signing custody papers for a nephew she barely knew. And Derek, Sarah's brother-in-law, Marcus's brother, had swooped in immediately, claiming family rights, claiming he should raise Noah. Never mind that he'd never shown interest in the boy before. Never mind that he'd always been violent, volatile, controlling. The court had sided with Lena. Barely. And Derek had made her pay for it every day since. Thank you for watching him, Lena said, fishing money out of her purse. Mrs. Chen waved it away like she always did. Keep it. Buy that boy some new shoes. His are getting too small. Inside her apartment, Lena locked the door and threw the deadbolt. Then she added the chain. Then she checked all the windows, making sure they were locked, and the cheap security bars were in place. Noah was asleep in the small bedroom they shared, curled up on his twin bed with his stuffed elephant clutched to his chest. In sleep, he looked peaceful, almost normal. It was only when he was awake that you could see the damage, the way he flinched at loud noises, the way he watched doorways like he expected something terrible to come through them, the way he hadn't spoken a single word since his parents died. The therapist said it was selective mutism brought on by trauma. She said Noah would speak again when he felt safe enough. But how could Lena make him feel safe when she couldn't even keep herself safe? She sat on the edge of his bed, smoothing back his dark hair. He looked so much like Sarah it hurt. I'll protect you, she whispered. I promise, whatever it takes. The phone Marcus had given her sat heavy in her pocket. Whatever it takes. The next 3 days passed in tense anticipation. Lena worked her shifts at Marcello's, hyper-aware of every shadow, every customer who looked at her too long. She walked Noah to school and picked him up personally, even though it meant arriving late to work and leaving early. She slept in fits and starts, waking at every sound. Derek didn't return, but the fear did. She saw Adrian only once, through the kitchen door, speaking with Marco in low tones. He'd glanced up, catching her eye for just a moment, and the weight of that gaze had made her look away. The phone stayed in her purse, unused. She hadn't called him, hadn't texted, hadn't acknowledged the offer that hung between them like a blade. On the 4th day, Derek came to Noah's school. Lena got the call during her lunch break. The principal, Mrs. Davidson, sounded carefully calm in the way people did when they were trying not to panic. Ms. Carter, there's been an incident. A man claiming to be Noah's uncle attempted to sign him out of school today. We refused, of course, given the custody documents you provided, but he became quite agitated. We've called the police, but I thought you should know immediately. Lena was already running. She made it to the school in 15 minutes, bursting through the doors to find Mrs. Davidson waiting in the office with a police officer. Noah sat in a chair nearby, small and silent, his eyes huge in his pale face. He's fine, Mrs. Davidson said quickly. The man never got close to him. Our security procedures worked exactly as they should. Where is he? Lena demanded, kneeling in front of Noah and checking him over even though she could see he was physically unharmed. Where's Derek? Gone by the time we arrived, the officer said. He was young, looked barely old enough to shave. But we have his description, and we've added this to the restraining order file. If he comes back what? Lena stood, fury overriding fear for the first time in months. You'll arrest him? How long will he stay locked up? A day? 2? And then what? He comes after us again. Ma'am, I understand your frustration. No, you don't. Her voice was shaking. You don't understand what it's like to run and never be far enough. To change your number and your address and your routine and have it mean nothing because he always finds you. You don't understand. Her voice broke. Noah's small hand slipped into hers, squeezing tight. She couldn't do this. Couldn't keep living like this. Couldn't keep putting Noah through this. That night, after Noah was asleep and the apartment was locked down tight, Lena took out the phone Adrian had given her. She stared at it for a long time. This was a line she couldn't uncross. She knew that. Knew. Once she called Adrian Russo, once she accepted his protection, she would be stepping into a world she'd spent her whole life avoiding. A world of violence and power and moral compromises. But wasn't she already living in violence? Wasn't Derek's abuse just as brutal, just as dangerous? At least with Adrian, she'd know what she was getting into. At least with Adrian, she might actually be safe. Her finger hovered over the call button. Whatever it takes, she'd promised Noah. She pressed dial. He answered on the second ring. Ms. Carter. He went to Noah's school today. The words tumbled out. Derek, he tried to take him. The police came, but he was already gone, and they won't. I know, Adrian said calmly. I have someone watching the school. You and your nephew were never in danger. Lena went still. You're watching us. I told you that you were under my protection, whether you accepted it or not. She should have been angry, should have been frightened. Instead, she felt something close to relief. I'm accepting it now, she said quietly. Whatever your terms are, whatever you want from me, I'm accepting. Good. No gloating in his voice, no triumph, just simple acknowledgement. Pack a bag for yourself and Noah. Enough for a week. Marcus will pick you up in an hour. Where are we going? Somewhere Derek can't reach you. Somewhere you'll be safe while I handle this situation. Handle it how? Silence. Then, do you really want to know? No, yes, she didn't know. Will he hurt anyone, she asked instead. He's already hurt people. Adrian's voice was a matter of fact. He hurt you. He terrorized your nephew. He violated a court order and attempted kidnapping. I'm simply going to make sure he understands that those actions have consequences. Consequences. Such a clean word for something she suspected would be very, very messy. I need your word, Lena said, that Noah will be safe, that this won't blow back on him. You have it. I protect what's mine, Ms. Carter, and as of this moment, you and Noah are under my protection. That makes you mine. There was that word again, mine. Possessive and absolute, but also somehow reassuring. 1 hour, Adrian said. Be ready. The line went dead. Lena stood in her tiny kitchen, phone still pressed to her ear, and wondered what she'd just done. Then she went to pack. Noah woke when she started pulling clothes from their shared dresser. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, watching her with that too-old expression he'd worn since the accident. We're going somewhere safe, Lena told him, keeping her voice gentle. Just for a little while. Just until things settle down. He didn't ask where. Didn't ask why. He just climbed out of bed and started helping her pack, moving with the quiet efficiency of a child who'd learned that sometimes you just had to run. It broke her heart. 50 minutes later, there was a knock at the door, 3 solid raps. Lena checked through the peephole. Marcus stood in the hallway, patient and unmovable. She opened the door. Ready? He asked. As I'll ever be. Marcus took their bags without a word, leading them down to a car that definitely hadn't been there an hour ago. Black, expensive. Windows tinted so dark they looked like mirrors. Noah climbed into the back seat without hesitation, his hand still gripping Lena's. She slid in beside him, and Marcus closed the door with a solid thunk that sounded like a vault ceiling. They drove north, out of the city, into suburbs that grew progressively wealthier. The buildings changed from apartments to houses to estates, each one larger and more impressive than the last. Finally, Marcus turned onto a private road marked only by a discreet sign, private property, no trespassing. The road wound through woods for nearly a mile before opening up to reveal a house that made Lena's breath catch. Not a house, an estate. Stone and glass and old money, sprawling across manicured grounds lit by subtle landscape lighting. It looked like something out of a magazine, the kind of place where powerful people made decisions that changed lives. The kind of place that belonged to men like Adrian Russo. Marcus pulled up to the front entrance. Before Lena could reach for the door handle, it was opening, and there stood Adrian himself. He'd traded the expensive suit for dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that somehow made him look even more dangerous. His eyes went to Noah first, assessing, then to Lena. "Welcome," he said simply. Noah's hand tightened in Lena's. She squeezed back, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. "It's okay," she whispered to him. "We're safe here." She hoped that was true. Adrian stepped back, gesturing them inside. "I'll show you to your rooms. We can discuss the details once you're settled." The interior was exactly what Lena expected. High ceilings, expensive art, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. But there was something else, too. Something warmer. Books on shelves, a jacket thrown over a chair, a coffee mug sitting on a side table. Someone actually lived here. It wasn't just a showpiece. Adrian led them upstairs to a hallway lined with doors. He opened one to reveal a bedroom that was bigger than Lena's entire apartment, decorated in soft blues and grays, with a bed that could sleep four, and windows that overlooked the grounds. "This is yours," Adrian said to Lena. Then he moved to the next door. "And this is for Noah." The second bedroom was smaller but no less impressive, and someone had clearly prepared it for a child. There were books on the shelf, toys in a basket, even a stuffed animal sitting on the bed. Noah's eyes went wide. "I had my assistant make some guesses about what an 8-year-old might like," Adrian said. "If she guessed wrong, we can get whatever you prefer." It was such a normal thing to say. So thoughtful. So completely at odds with everything Lena knew about Adrian Russo. "Thank you," she managed. Adrian nodded. "There are clothes in the closets. Again, my assistant's choices, but we can adjust. Dinner will be ready in an hour. The kitchen is downstairs, second door on the left. Make yourselves at home." He turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. There are security personnel on the grounds. You're safe here, but don't be alarmed if you see them. They're here to protect you, nothing more." "How many?" Lena asked. "Enough." Adrian's expression didn't change. "Derek won't get within a mile of this house. I guarantee it." After he left, Lena and Noah stood in the hallway, staring at the 2 bedrooms that were now theirs. "What do you think?" Lena asked quietly. Noah looked up at her, then at the bedrooms, then back at her. He didn't speak. He never did. But he pointed at the toys and raised his eyebrows in a question. "Yes," Lena said, understanding. "They're for you. You can play with them." He disappeared into his room immediately, heading straight for the bookshelf. Lena watched him go, then sank onto her own bed, springs so soft she felt like she might sink into them forever. What had she done? She'd made a deal with the devil. That's what she'd done. Traded one form of danger for another, all in the name of keeping Noah safe. But as she sat there in a bedroom that probably cost more than she'd make in 5 years, listening to Noah quietly explore his new room, she couldn't quite bring herself to regret it. For the first time in 8 months, her nephew sounded almost content. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Lena felt something that might have been hope. Even if it came wrapped in the dark promise of Adrian Russo's protection. Lena woke to sunlight streaming through windows she didn't recognize, in a bed too soft to be her own. For a disoriented moment, she thought she was dreaming. Then, memory crashed back. Derek at the school, the phone call, Marcus driving them through the night to this place. Adrian Russo's estate. She sat up, heart pounding, and immediately looked toward the door connecting her room to Noah's. It was slightly ajar, the way she'd left it last night so she could hear him if he needed her. The clock on the nightstand read 7:47 a.m. Later than she usually slept, but exhaustion had finally caught up with her somewhere around 3 in the morning after she'd spent hours lying awake, listening to unfamiliar sounds and wondering what price she'd ultimately pay for this sanctuary. Lena pushed back covers that probably cost more than her monthly rent and padded to Noah's room. He was still asleep, curled around the new stuffed bear someone had left on his bed. In the morning light, she could see the room more clearly. Walls painted a soft gray blue, shelves lined with books arranged by height, a desk by the window with art supplies, neatly organized in containers. Someone had put thought into this. Real thought. Not just thrown money at the problem, but actually considered what a traumatized 8-year-old might need. She didn't know what to do with that information. A soft knock at her bedroom door made her jump. She hurried back, grabbing a robe that had been laid out on a chair, silk, expensive, definitely not hers, and cracked the door open. A woman in her 50s stood in the hallway, dressed professionally but warmly, with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. "Miss Carter? I'm sorry to disturb you. I'm Elena, Mr. Russo's house manager. I wanted to let you know that breakfast is available whenever you're ready. There's no rush. You and Noah can come down when it suits you." House manager. Of course a place like this had a house manager. "Thank you," Lena managed. "We'll be down soon." "Take your time, and if there's anything you need, anything at all, please don't hesitate to ask." Elena's smile was genuine. "Mr. Russo has made it very clear that you and your nephew are to be made comfortable." After Elena left, Lena stood for a moment, processing. This was her life now, at least temporarily. Silk robes and house managers and a man who commanded enough power that people moved when he spoke. She found clothes in the closet, just as Adrian had promised. Jeans that fit perfectly, soft sweaters and neutrals, even undergarments in her exact size. The accuracy was unsettling. How much did Adrian Russo know about her? Noah woke as she was getting dressed, his dark eyes watching her from his doorway. He was still in the pajamas he'd worn last night. His own, at least. Some small piece of normalcy in all this strangeness. "Good morning, baby," Lena said softly. "Did you sleep okay?" He nodded, then pointed downstairs with a questioning look. "We're going to get breakfast. The lady who manages this house said it's ready whenever we want." She moved to his closet, finding it stocked with clothes in his size. "Want to pick something to wear?" Together they chose jeans and a blue sweater. Noah changed himself. He'd grown fiercely independent since the accident, needing to control the few things he could, and then took Lena's hand as they ventured into the hallway. The house was different in daylight, no less impressive, but less intimidating. Morning sun poured through tall windows, warming hardwood floors and making the artwork glow. Lena could hear distant sounds, voices, movement, the clatter of dishes, that suggested life beyond the quiet luxury. They found the kitchen by following the smell of coffee and bacon. It was enormous, all marble countertops and professional-grade appliances, with a breakfast nook that overlooked gardens she hadn't seen in the dark. Adrian sat at the table, reading a newspaper, an actual physical newspaper, with a cup of coffee at his elbow. He looked up as they entered, his expression neutral. "Good morning," he said. "I hope you slept well." "We did. Thank you." Lena's voice came out more formal than she intended. "How did you talk to a man who'd saved your life and then brought you to his home? What was the protocol?" "Elena mentioned breakfast," she added. "Help yourself." Adrian gestured to a sideboard laden with food. "Or tell Elena what you'd prefer, and she'll make it." It was too much. The spread looked like it could feed a dozen people. Eggs, bacon, sausage, fresh fruit, pastries, yogurt, cereals. Lena took a plate and put small portions of scrambled eggs and fruit on it, then made one for Noah with the things she knew he'd eat. They sat at the far end of the table, maintaining distance. Adrian continued reading his paper, giving them space, but Lena could feel his awareness. He was the kind of man who noticed everything, even when he seemed focused elsewhere. Noah ate slowly, his eyes darting between the food and Adrian and the windows. Cataloging exits, Lena realized with a pang. Her nephew had learned to always know the way out. "There's a room upstairs," Adrian said after a few minutes, not looking up from his paper. "Third floor, end of the hall. It has art supplies, books, some games. Noah is welcome to use it whenever he likes." Lena blinked. "That's very kind, but we don't want to impose—" "It's not an imposition. The room exists. It might as well be used." He turned a page. "There's also grounds to explore if you'd like. The gardens are safe, And there's a path through the woods that leads to a pond. Why? The question slipped out before Lena could stop it. This time Adrian did look up, meeting her eyes directly. Why what? Why are you doing this? The rooms, the clothes, the food, all of it. What do you want from us? I told you what I want. I want you to work at the restaurant, be visible, show people that those under my protection are taken care of. His tone was matter of fact. And I want Derek to understand that touching you again means dealing with me. That's all? Something flickered in his dark eyes. What else did you think I wanted, Miss Carter? Heat crept up her neck. She didn't know. That was the problem. Men like Adrian Russo didn't do favors without expecting something in return, but she couldn't figure out his angle. I don't know, she admitted. That's what scares me. Fear is smart, but it's also exhausting. Adrian folded his newspaper and stood. I have business to attend to today. You and Noah should settle in, explore the house, rest. Marcus will be nearby if you need anything. Tomorrow we'll discuss logistics, your schedule at the restaurant, Noah's school arrangements, security protocols. School? Lena's chest tightened. He can't go back to his old school. Derek knows where it is. I'm aware. I've made arrangements with a private academy 20 minutes from here. Small classes, excellent security, and they're experienced with children who have experienced trauma. Adrian paused at the doorway. They're also accustomed to discretion. No one will know Noah is there except the people who need to know. Private academy. Of course, because that was the world Adrian lived in, where problems were solved with money and influence. I can't afford, Lena started. You're not paying for it. Consider it part of the protection package. He said it so casually, like he was discussing the weather. Noah needs stability and safety. This provides both. Before Lena could respond, he was gone, his footsteps fading down the hallway. She looked at Noah, who was watching her with those two knowing eyes. I don't understand him, she said quietly. Do you? Noah shook his head, but he didn't look scared anymore, just thoughtful. They spent the morning exploring. The house was even bigger than Lena had realized. 5 bedrooms upstairs, plus the playroom Adrian had mentioned, which turned out to be a child's paradise. Art easels and supplies, building blocks, board games, even a reading nook with cushions and a window seat. Noah gravitated immediately to the art supplies, running his fingers over pristine markers and fresh paper. He looked at Lena questioningly. Yes, you can use them. Mr. Russo said so. She still couldn't quite bring herself to call him Adrian, even in her head. It felt too familiar, too presumptuous. While Noah drew, violent scribbles of black and red that Lena knew were his way of processing trauma, she wandered to the windows. The ground stretched out below, meticulously maintained. She could see a man in a dark suit walking the perimeter. Security, she realized. One of the people Adrian had mentioned. How many were there? How much danger did he really think they were in? Or was this just how he lived, constantly guarded, constantly vigilant, always prepared for threats? Her phone buzzed. The new one, not her old one. A text from an unknown number. Derek violated his restraining order yesterday. Police picked him up this morning. He'll be held for 72 hours minimum. A.R. Adrian. Of course he'd have her number. He'd probably had someone program it into the phone before Marcus gave it to her. Lena stared at the message, trying to process what it meant. Derek was in custody. For 3 days, at least, he couldn't hurt them. 3 days of breathing room. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. Thank you, she typed back. The response came immediately. He won't bother you again after this? I'm making sure of it. That should have comforted her. Instead, it raised questions she wasn't sure she wanted answered. How exactly was Adrian making sure of it? What did a man like him do to someone who'd become a problem? She pocketed the phone and returned to Noah, who'd moved from violent scribbles to something more controlled. He was drawing a house. Their apartment, she realized. Small and cramped and familiar. Do you miss it? Lena asked, sitting beside him. He nodded. Then he drew another house next to the first one. This one was bigger with more windows. He added trees and what might have been a pond. Is that here? Another nod. Do you like it here? Noah's hand hesitated over the paper. Then he drew a stick figure next to the small house. A man, tall and angular, with an angry slash for a mouth. Derek. And next to the big house, He drew two figures, one small, one taller. Himself and Lena, safe inside. Her throat tightened. Yeah, baby, we're safe here. For now, at least. Lunch appeared as if by magic. Elena bringing sandwiches and soup to the playroom, setting them on a small table with quiet efficiency. Lena tried to thank her, but the woman waved it off. It's my job, dear, and my pleasure. It's been a long time since this house had a child in it. That caught Lena's attention. Mr. Russo has children? Oh no. Elena's expression shifted, becoming carefully neutral. But he was a child here once. This was his family's home. Was past tense. Lena wanted to ask more, but Elena was already leaving, and prying into Adrian's history felt dangerous. The afternoon stretched long and quiet. Noah drew more pictures, some dark, some lighter. Lena found a book on the shelf and tried to read, but couldn't focus. Her mind kept circling back to Derek in a cell, to Adrian's promise, to the weight of obligation settling over her shoulders. Around 4, Marcus appeared in the doorway. Miss Carter, Mr. Russo asked me to show you the security features of the house, so you know how to stay safe. Right, because this was a fortress, not just a home. She left Noah with his art and followed Marcus through the house. He showed her the panic buttons hidden in every room, the reinforced doors, the security cameras covering every angle of the property, the safe room in the basement, stocked with supplies, the emergency exit routes. How often do you use these? Lena asked as Marcus demonstrated the fingerprint scanner on the safe room door. Rarely. Mr. Russo prefers prevention to reaction, but it's better to have them and not need them. Has anyone ever gotten in, past all this security? Marcus's expression went flat. Once, 5 years ago, they didn't leave. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. I see, Lena managed. Mr. Russo takes protection seriously, Marcus continued, leading her back upstairs. The people under his care don't get hurt. Not twice. Not twice. Meaning once was forgivable, an oversight, a gap in security. But a second time? That was unacceptable. Lena thought about Derek's hands around her throat, the terror in Noah's eyes when his uncle showed up at school. How many times had they been hurt? How many times had she told herself it would be the last, only to have Derek find them again? Can I ask you something? She said as they reached the main floor. Marcus nodded. Why does he care? Really? I'm nobody. Noah's nobody. Why go through all this trouble? You're not nobody. You're someone who was hurt on his property, under his watch. That makes it personal. Marcus paused, considering. And the boy reminds him of someone. I think. Who? That's not my story to tell. Marcus's tone made it clear the conversation was over. Dinner's at 7. Mr. Russo will be joining you. The thought of sitting through dinner with Adrian made Lena's stomach twist with anxiety. What did you talk about with a crime boss? How did you make small talk with a man who could make people disappear? She spent the next 2 hours helping Noah clean up the playroom and getting him ready for dinner. She changed into a simple dress she found in the closet. Dark blue, modest, appropriate. Armor of a different kind. They made their way to the dining room at 7, exactly, finding Adrian already there. He'd changed too, trading the casual sweater for a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked relaxed, comfortable in his own space. Please sit, he said, gesturing to the chairs near his end of the table. Elena served dinner, roasted chicken, vegetables, potatoes cooked in herbs Lena couldn't name. It smelled incredible and tasted better. Noah ate steadily, his shoulders gradually losing their tension as the meal progressed without incident. How was your day? Adrian asked, directing the question to Noah. The boy looked startled that someone was addressing him directly. He glanced at Lena, uncertain. Noah doesn't talk, Lena said quietly. Not for a while now. I'm aware. Adrian's expression didn't change. But that doesn't mean he can't communicate, or that his thoughts don't matter. He looked at Noah again. Did you find the playroom adequate? Noah nodded, then reached for his napkin. He hesitated, looking at Lena again. She gave a small nod of permission, and he spread the napkin on the table, using his fork to draw in the condensation from his water glass. A picture emerged. Simple stick figures. Himself, Lena, and another taller figure. They were all standing together but not touching. Safe but separate. Adrian studied it for a long moment. I'm glad you feel secure here. That's important. Noah's eyes widened slightly, surprised at being understood. My assistant tells me you're enrolled at Riverside Academy starting Monday, Adrian continued, speaking in the same calm tone. Small classes, good teachers. They have an excellent art program if that interests you. This time Noah looked at Lena, excitement breaking through his usual guardedness. Art program? We'll make sure you have everything you need, she assured him. Dinner continued with surprisingly easy conversation, or as easy as it could be when one person didn't speak and another was a crime boss. Adrian asked about Noah's interests, his favorite subjects from his old school, what books he liked. Lena answered when Noah couldn't, but increasingly the boy found ways to communicate. Nods, shakes of his head, drawings in the condensation. It was almost normal, disturbingly so. After dinner, Adrian walked them back to their rooms. I'll be traveling tomorrow, he said. Business in the city. Marcus will be here and Elena. You'll be completely safe. The business you mentioned, Lena started carefully. Is it about Derek? Among other things. Adrian stopped at her door. You don't need to worry about him anymore, Ms. Carter. I've made arrangements. What kind of arrangements? His dark eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw something cold in them, something that reminded her exactly who she was dealing with. The kind that ensure he understands the consequences of his actions. The kind that makes certain he never touches you or Noah again. His voice was soft but absolute. You asked me to protect you. This is what protection looks like. Lena's mouth went dry. You're going to hurt him. I'm going to make sure he can't hurt you. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. No hesitation, no doubt. He made his choices. Now he lives with the consequences. Noah's hand tightened in Lena's. She looked down to find him watching Adrian with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not fear, something else. Something that looked almost like trust? We should get you to bed, Lena said to Noah, needing to end this conversation before it went further. Adrian nodded. Sleep well, both of you. He disappeared down the hallway, leaving Lena standing with Noah, trying to process what had just happened. What she'd tacitly agreed to by accepting Adrian's protection. That night, after Noah was asleep, Lena stood at her window, looking out over the grounds. She could see security personnel moving in the darkness, silent guardians keeping watch. She thought about Derek in a cell, about Adrian's cold eyes, about the line she'd crossed when she called that number. She'd made a deal with a dangerous man, had traded one form of violence for another. But as she watched Noah sleep peacefully for the first time in months, she couldn't bring herself to regret it. Whatever Adrian Russo did to Derek, whatever consequences he enforced, Lena would live with it, because Noah was safe. And right now, that was all that mattered. The next morning, Adrian was gone before they woke. Marcus drove Noah to Riverside Academy for his orientation, and Lena spent the day at the restaurant, returning to work under the watchful eyes of Marco and the other staff who definitely knew something had changed. They treated her differently now, more carefully, with more respect. Because she was under Adrian Russo's protection, and everyone knew what that meant. When her shift ended, Marcus was waiting, not in the alley, she'd never use that entrance again, but out front, in a car that screamed money and power. How was Noah's first day? She asked as they drove. Good. The teachers say he's bright, engaged. They have a therapist on staff who'll start working with him next week. Of course they did. Adrian had thought of everything. They arrived back at the estate to find Noah in the playroom, surrounded by art supplies, and looking more animated than Lena had seen him in months. Elena stood nearby, smiling. He's been drawing all afternoon, she said. Such talent for one so young. Lena moved to see what Noah had created. Her breath caught. Pictures covered the table. Not the violent scribbles from before, but real scenes. The estate, the gardens, Marcus, Elena, and in several of them, a tall figure standing watch. Always in the background, always vigilant. Adrian. You like him, Lena said softly to Noah. Her nephew nodded, then pointed to one picture in particular. It showed the three of them, Noah, Lena, and Adrian, standing together. Not separate anymore, like in the earlier drawing. Together. Baby, I don't know if that's... Lena started but stopped. What was she going to say? That they couldn't get attached? That this was temporary? That Adrian Russo wasn't the kind of man you built a family with? But Noah was already attached. She could see it in every careful line he'd drawn, in the way he'd placed Adrian between them and the dark edges of the paper. Protection made visible. That evening, Adrian returned. Lena heard his car on the gravel drive, heard the front door open and close. She waited in her room, wondering if he'd seek her out, if he'd tell her what he'd done. He didn't. But the next morning, Marcus handed her a newspaper over breakfast. She opened it to find a small article buried on page 7. Local man accepts plea deal in assault case. Derek's name jumped out at her from the text. He'd pleaded guilty to assault, violation of a restraining order, and attempted kidnapping. The sentence, 3 years in prison, followed by mandatory counseling and a permanent restraining order. No possibility of parole. That 3 years. Not forever, but enough time to breathe. Enough time for Noah to heal. Enough time to figure out their next move. Mr. Russo thought you'd want to know, Marcus said quietly. Lena's hands shook as she set down the paper. How did he... The evidence was compelling, and the prosecutor was motivated. Marcus's expression gave nothing away. Sometimes justice needs a push in the right direction. Justice. Or Adrian's version of it. She should have felt relieved. She did feel relieved, but underneath was something more complicated. Gratitude mixed with unease, safety purchased with power she didn't fully understand. Where is he? Lena asked. In his office, third door on the right if you want to speak with him. She did? She didn't. She had to. Lena found the office exactly where Marcus said. The door was open, revealing a room lined with books and filled with dark wood furniture. Adrian sat behind a massive desk, reading something on his computer. He looked up as she entered. Ms. Carter? It's Lena. The words came out before she could think better of them. You've done all this for us. You should call me Lena. Something shifted in his expression. Then you should call me Adrian. Okay. She moved further into the room, nerves making her hands fidget with the hem of her sweater. I saw the newspaper. And I don't know what to say. Thank you doesn't seem like enough for... She gestured helplessly. For all of this. You don't owe me thanks. You owe me your presence at the restaurant, your cooperation with security protocols, and your discretion about what you see and hear. Adrian leaned back in his chair. That's the arrangement. Is it? Lena found herself moving closer, drawn by something she couldn't name. Because it feels like more than that. The school, the clothes, the way you talk to Noah, that's not just business. No, Adrian agreed quietly. It's not. Then what is it? He was silent for a long moment, studying her with those dark, unreadable eyes. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower, more raw than she'd heard it before. I was 8 when my father was killed, shot in the street by a rival family, in front of my mother and me. The words were matter of fact, but Lena could hear the old pain beneath them. I stopped talking for a year afterward. Couldn't. Every time I tried, I saw his blood on the sidewalk and the words died in my throat. Lena's breath caught. Noah reminds me of myself, yes. A boy who lost everything and doesn't know how to process it, who needs safety and stability, and someone who won't push him to be okay before he's ready. Adrian's gaze never wavered. I can give him that. I can give you both that. And in return, you give me the satisfaction of knowing I prevented someone else from suffering the way I did. It was the most honest thing he'd said to her, the most vulnerable, and it changed everything. You're a good man, Lena said softly. Adrian laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. No, I'm not. I've done things that would horrify you. I'll do more before this is over, but I can protect the people who matter. That's something. It's everything, Lena corrected. She was standing right in front of his desk now, close enough to see the fine lines around his eyes, the tension in his jaw. To us, it's everything. Their eyes met and held. Something passed between them, understanding maybe, or recognition. Two people who'd survived their own forms of violence, finding unexpected common ground. Stay, Adrian said suddenly. Not just until Derek is dealt with. Stay here, you and Noah. This house is too big, too empty, and you need stability. Let me provide that. For how long? As long as you need. It was too much, too generous, too dangerous for her heart, which was already starting to see him as more than just a benefactor. But Lena thought about Noah's drawings, about his small smile when Adrian asked him about his day, about sleeping without fear for the first time in forever. Okay, she whispered. We'll stay. Adrian's shoulders relaxed almost imperceptibly, like he'd been braced for rejection. Good, was all he said. But the way he looked at her, like she'd given him something valuable, something precious, said so much more. The weeks that followed settled into something Lena had never experienced before, routine without fear. She worked her shifts at Marcello's, where the staff had stopped whispering about her connection to Adrian and started treating her like family. Noah thrived at Riverside Academy, his backpack growing heavier with artwork he proudly brought home each afternoon. And Adrian remained a constant presence in their lives, quiet and watchful, asking about their days over dinner like it was the most natural thing in the world. It was almost enough to make Lena forget that this wasn't real, that she was living in a borrowed life, protected by a dangerous man who could withdraw his favor at any moment. Almost. He drew this today, Noah's teacher, Mrs. Patterson, said one afternoon during pickup, handing Lena a piece of construction paper. The assignment was to draw your family. Lena's breath caught. The picture showed 3 figures standing in front of a large house, a small boy, a woman, and a tall man. Above them, Noah had written in careful letters, "My family." He's making remarkable progress, Mrs. Patterson continued, her smile warm. The therapist says he's starting to vocalize during their sessions. Just sounds, but it's a beginning. Lena clutched the drawing to her chest, emotions warring inside her. Pride that Noah was healing. Fear that he was getting too attached. Guilt that she was letting it happen. Because the truth was, she was getting attached too. She'd started noticing things about Adrian. The way he took his coffee black but added sugar when he thought no one was looking. How he read actual books before bed, never screens. The small scar above his left eyebrow that he touched when he was thinking. The careful way he moved around Noah. Never crowding, never demanding, just being present. And the way he looked at her sometimes when he thought she wasn't watching, like she was something precious he was afraid to touch. It terrified her. That evening, Lena found Adrian in the library, a room she'd discovered in her explorations of the house. Floor-to-ceiling shelves surrounded a fireplace where flames crackled softly. He sat in a leather chair reading, a glass of whiskey on the table beside him. He looked up as she entered. "Everything all right?" "Noah drew this today?" She handed him the picture. Adrian studied it for a long moment, his expression unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. "He sees us as family." "Yes." Lena sat in the chair across from him, the fire warming her skin. "Is that... should I be discouraging it? Setting boundaries? I don't know what the rules are here, Adrian." "There are no rules." He set the drawing down carefully, like it was fragile. "Only what feels right." "And what feels right to you?" His dark eyes found hers across the space between them. "Having you both here feels right. Coming home to voices in the house, to Noah's artwork on the refrigerator, to you reading in the evenings, that feels right." He paused. "But I won't push for more than you're willing to give." "What if I don't know what I'm willing to give?" Lena's heart was racing. "What if I'm scared of what this is becoming?" "Then we go slowly. We take it day by day." Adrian leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I'm not Derek, Lena. I won't force anything. You set the pace. You decide what this is." The comparison to Derek sent a flash of anger through her. "You're nothing like him." "Aren't I?" His smile was bitter. "I've hurt people. Worse than he ever did. I've made choices that keep me awake at night. The only difference is I've never hurt someone who didn't choose this life." "That's not a small difference. It's not enough of one." Adrian picked up his whiskey, swirling the amber liquid. "You should know what you're getting into. Who I really am." "I know who you are. You're the man who saved me, who gave Noah a safe place to heal, who sits with him at breakfast and asks about his day like it matters." Lena's voice strengthened. "You're the man who kept your promise. That's who you are to me." Something in Adrian's expression cracked, vulnerability showing through. You make me want to be better, both of you. You make me want to be the man you think I am. Then be him, Lena said simply. The moment stretched between them, heavy with possibility. Then Adrian's phone buzzed, shattering it. He checked the screen and his entire demeanor changed, shoulders tensing, jaw tightening. What's wrong? Lena asked. Derek was released this morning. Early parole for good behavior. Adrian's voice was ice. My contact at the prison just confirmed it. The world tilted. But the sentence was 3 years. It's only been 6 weeks. Overcrowding, budget cuts, a sympathetic parole board. Adrian was already standing, moving to his desk. It doesn't matter why. What matters is he's out. Fear crashed over Lena like a wave. He'll come for us. Yes. Adrian pulled his phone out again, typing rapidly. Which is why we're moving you tonight. Moving us where? I have a house on the coast, isolated, secure. You and Noah will stay there until I handle this. His fingers flew across the screen. Marcus is already packing your things. You leave in an hour. An hour? Lena stood, panic rising. Adrian, I have work tomorrow. Noah has school. None of that matters if you're dead. His voice was sharp, cutting. Then he seemed to catch himself, softening. I'm sorry, but Derek violated every agreement, manipulated the system, and he's out there right now planning how to get to you. I won't risk it. What about you? I'll handle Derek, permanently this time. The word hung in the air between them, permanently. No ambiguity about what that meant. You're going to kill him, Lena whispered. Adrian didn't deny it. I'm going to make sure he never threatens you again, whatever that takes. She should have been horrified, should have argued, should have insisted there was another way. But standing there, thinking about Derek's hands around her throat, about him showing up at Noah's school, about the years of terror she'd already lived through. Okay, she said. Adrian's eyes widened slightly. Okay? I'm not going to pretend to be naive about what you do or who you are. Lena moved closer to him, close enough to see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. If Derek dies, I'll mourn the man he could have been. But I won't mourn the monster he became, and I won't blame you for protecting us the only way you know how. For a moment, Adrian just stared at her. Then his hand came up, fingers gentle as they traced the fading bruises on her throat. I will never let anyone hurt you again, he said, voice low and fierce. That's a promise. I know. And she did. She trusted this dangerous man more than she'd trusted anyone in years. The next hour was chaos. Marcus appeared with suitcases already packed. Elena fussed over Noah, making sure he had his favorite things. Lena threw together last-minute items while trying to explain to her nephew that they were going on an adventure, just for a little while, nothing to worry about. Noah wasn't fooled. He clutched his stuffed bear and watched the adults with worried eyes that had seen too much already. Adrian walked them to the car, his hand on the small of Lena's back. The house is stocked with everything you'll need. There's security on the grounds and cameras on every entrance. You'll be safe there. What about you? Lena asked. Will you be safe? I'm always careful. That's not what I asked. His lips quirked in something almost like a smile. I'll be fine. I've been doing this a long time. Marcus loaded the last bag and opened the car door. Noah climbed in, but Lena hesitated. Adrian? He pulled her into a hug before she could finish. It was brief, controlled, but she could feel the tension in his body. The barely leashed violence ready to be unleashed on anyone who threatened what was his. Go, he said against her hair. I'll come to you when it's done. The drive took 3 hours, winding through darkness until they reached a road that hugged the coastline. The house appeared suddenly, perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. It was smaller than the estate, but no less secure, lights illuminating a modern structure of glass and stone that seemed to grow out of the rocks themselves. Marcus led them inside, checking every room, every lock, every window. There are 2 guards on the property at all times, he explained. They'll stay out of sight, but they're there. If anything happens, anything at all, you press this. He showed her a pendant on a chain, small and discreet. Help will come immediately. Are you staying? Lena asked. No, Mr. Russo needs me in the city. Marcus's expression was grim. But you're safer here than anywhere else, I promise. After he left, Lena and Noah explored their new temporary home. The main room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean, where waves crashed against rocks in a rhythm that should have been soothing. A kitchen stocked with enough food for weeks. 2 bedrooms, each with its own bathroom. And everywhere, subtle signs of security. Cameras, reinforced glass, locks that looked simple but were anything but. Noah found the windows first, pressing his hands against the glass as he stared at the dark ocean beyond. The moon was rising, painting silver trails across the water. Lena joined him, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. "Pretty, isn't it?" He nodded, then looked up at her with a question in his eyes. Where was Adrian? He had to take care of something important, but he'll come see us soon. She hoped that was true. Hoped Adrian would survive whatever confrontation was coming. They slept restlessly that first night, Lena startling awake at every unfamiliar sound. The house was full of them, the crash of waves, the whistle of wind, the creak of settling wood. She checked on Noah 3 times before finally accepting that sleep wasn't coming and moving to the main room. The ocean at night was mesmerizing, vast and dark and powerful. She could see why Adrian had chosen this place. It felt like the edge of the world, isolated from everything and everyone. Her phone buzzed. A text from Adrian. "Derek's associates know where you used to live. They came looking tonight, found nothing." Lena's hands shook as she typed back, "Are you all right?" "Yes, stay where you are. Don't leave the house." She wanted to ask more. Where was Derek? What was happening? When would this be over? But the message had already been marked as read, and no response came. The waiting was torture. The next day crawled by. Lena tried to keep Noah entertained. They explored the beach below the house, always staying within sight of the guards Adrian had mentioned. Built elaborate sandcastles that the tide would wash away. Collected shells and sea glass worn smooth by years of tumbling in the surf. But underneath every moment was the tension of not knowing, of waiting for word that didn't come. That evening, as Lena was making dinner, one of the guards appeared at the door. He was young, professional, with kind eyes that didn't match the weapon at his hip. "Ms. Carter, we need you to stay inside tonight. Lock all the doors and don't open them for anyone except Mr. Russo or myself." Ice flooded her veins. "What's happening?" "Precaution, ma'am. We've had some activity in the area. Probably nothing, but Mr. Russo wants us to be careful." Probably nothing. The words meant everything. Lena locked the doors as instructed, checked every window, and brought Noah to the main room where she could see all approaches to the house. She tried to act normal, to not let her fear show, but Noah wasn't fooled. He stayed close, his small hand finding hers. Hours passed. The sun set, painting the ocean in shades of gold and red, before darkness swallowed everything. Lena kept her phone close, willing it to ring, to buzz, to give her any information. At 9:30, lights appeared on the road leading to the house. A car, moving fast. Lena's heart hammered as she watched it approach. Too fast to be friendly. Too aggressive to be... The car screeched to a stop in front of the house. Car doors opened. Figures emerged, backlit by headlights. She couldn't see faces, couldn't tell if they were security or... Gunfire erupted. Lena grabbed Noah and hit the floor, pulling him behind the couch as glass shattered somewhere in the house. The pendant around her neck. She pressed it frantically, over and over, sending silent pleas for help. "Stay down," she hissed to Noah, whose eyes were huge with terror. "Stay down and don't move." More gunfire. Shouting, the sound of the front door splintering. Footsteps in the house. Lena looked around desperately for a weapon, for anything. Her hand closed around a heavy book on the coffee table. Pathetic, but it was something. The footsteps were getting closer. "Lena!" a voice called. Male. Familiar. "I know you're here. Come out and this doesn't have to get messy." Derek. He'd found them. Somehow, despite everything, he'd found them. "Your boyfriend's men put up a good fight," Derek continued, his voice echoing through the house. "But they're down now. It's just you and me. Like old times." Noah trembled against her. Lena pulled him closer, her mind racing. The bedroom had a lock. If she could get there, barricade the door, maybe buy enough time for help to arrive. She started to move, crawling toward the hallway, pulling Noah with her. "I can hear you," Derek sang out. "Come on, Lena. You really think you can hide from me?" They made it to the hallway. 5 more feet to the bedroom. A shadow fell across them. Lena looked up to find Derek standing there, gun in hand, smiling that terrible smile she remembered from her nightmares. "There you are," he said. She pushed Noah behind her, rising to her feet on shaking legs. "Don't touch him. I'm not here for the kid. I'm here for you." Derek stepped closer. "You cost me 3 years of my life, got me locked up, turned into a rat for your rich boyfriend. Did you really think I'd let that go? Adrian will kill you for this. Adrian Russo is busy dealing with a little distraction I arranged in the city. By the time he realizes where I really am, you'll be gone." Derek raised the gun, pointing it at her chest. "I told you this wasn't over." "Please," Lena's voice cracked. "Please, Derek. Whatever you're going to do, don't let Noah see it. He's just a child." Something flickered across Derek's face. "You always did care more about that kid than you did about me." "Because he's innocent. Because he deserves better than all of this." "And I didn't?" Derek's voice rose. "I gave you everything. I protected you when your sister died. I gave you a place to stay. You broke my bones," Lena shouted back. "You terrorized us. You made our lives hell. I loved you." "That wasn't love. Love doesn't hurt like that." Derek's finger tightened on the trigger. Lena closed her eyes, pulling Noah closer, preparing for... The front door exploded inward. Adrian came through it like vengeance personified, gun drawn, eyes blazing with fury. He took in the scene in a split second. Derek with his weapon pointed at Lena, Lena shielding Noah, the shattered windows and signs of violence. "Drop it," Adrian said, his voice deadly calm. Derek spun, firing wildly. The shot went wide. Adrian didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. He fired once, precise and controlled. Derek went down. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by Noah's quiet sobs against Lena's shoulder. Adrian moved forward, kicking Derek's gun away, checking for a pulse. When he looked up, his expression was grim. He's alive. For now. He pulled out his phone, speaking rapidly to someone on the other end. Then he was moving to Lena and Noah, holstering his weapon as he knelt in front of them. "Are you hurt?" His hands were gentle as they checked them both over, looking for injuries. "No." Lena's voice was shaking. "The guards," Derek said, "they're alive. Injured but alive. Backup's already with them." Adrian pulled Noah into his arms, the boy clinging to him desperately. "You're safe now. I promise. You're safe." Lena watched him hold her nephew, this dangerous man offering comfort with surprising tenderness, and something inside her broke open. All the fear, all the tension, all the terror of the last hour came pouring out in great racking sobs. Adrian pulled her close with his free arm, holding them both while she fell apart. "I've got you," he murmured against her hair. "I've got you both. You're safe." The next hours were a blur of police and ambulances and questions Lena answered in a daze. Derek was taken away, unconscious, surrounded by armed guards. Adrian's people handled everything with practiced efficiency, cleaning up the scene, repairing the damage, making it all disappear. Through it all, Adrian stayed close, a hand on her back, a steadying presence, proof that they had survived. As dawn broke over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Lena found herself standing on the deck with Adrian while Noah slept inside, finally exhausted enough to rest. "He'll live," Adrian said quietly. "Derek." The shot wasn't fatal. "I know." Lena watched the waves crash below. "Part of me wishes it had been." "He's going back to prison, this time for attempted murder, breaking and entering, assault with a deadly weapon. They'll throw away the key." "Will they, or will he manipulate his way out again?" "Not this time." Adrian's voice was iron. "I've made sure of it. He'll die in prison, Lena, old and forgotten. That's his fate now." She should have felt relief, victory, something. Instead, she just felt tired. "I'm sorry," Adrian said after a moment. "I should have anticipated this. Should have protected you better." "You saved our lives. Again." Lena turned to face him. "How many times are you going to have to save us before you realize you've already done enough?" "There's no such thing as enough when it comes to keeping you safe." His hand came up, cupping her face. "Don't you understand that yet? You and Noah, you've become everything to me. The thought of losing you. His voice broke. Lena leaned into his touch, exhaustion and emotion making her brave. Then don't let us go. Don't send us away to be safe. Let us stay with you. Let us be what Noah drew in that picture, a family. You don't know what you're asking. Yes, I do. I'm asking for the truth we've been dancing around for weeks. I'm asking for what I see in your eyes every time you look at us. She covered his hand with hers. I'm asking you to let us love you back. Adrian's breath caught. For a long moment, he just stared at her, vulnerability and hope and fear all warring across his features. Then he kissed her. It was gentle at first, tentative, like he was afraid she'd pull away. But Lena had been through hell and back in the last 12 hours, had faced death and survived, and she was done being afraid. She kissed him back with everything she had, all the fear transmuted into need, all the terror transformed into desperate affirmation of life. They were alive, they had survived. And she was choosing this, choosing him. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he whispered. Both of you. I didn't mean to, didn't plan for it, but somewhere between Noah's first smile and your refusal to be afraid, I fell. Good, Lena whispered back, because we fell too. The sun continued to rise, burning away the darkness, painting everything in shades of gold. And standing there on the deck of a house that had nearly become their tomb, Lena and Adrian made a silent promise to each other. They would build something new from the ashes of what they'd survived. Something real, something lasting, something worth fighting for. They stayed at the coastal house for 2 more days, while Adrian's people secured the estate and ensured no other threats remained. Lena watched him work from a distance, phone calls conducted in low voices, meetings with men whose faces she didn't recognize, decisions made with the kind of quiet authority that came from years of command. This was the other side of Adrian Russo, the one the world feared, and she was seeing it fully for the first time. It should have frightened her. Instead, she found it strangely comforting. This was the man who had the power to keep them safe, who would burn down the world to protect what was his. And they were his now. She'd said it, he'd claimed it, and there was no going back. Noah seemed lighter in those days, as if Derek's capture had lifted a weight he'd been carrying. He explored the beach with new confidence, collecting treasures in a bucket Adrian had bought him, shells and smooth stones and pieces of driftwood shaped by the ocean. At night, he fell asleep easily, no longer startling at every sound. The third morning, Adrian found Lena on the deck watching the sunrise. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. We can go home today, he said quietly. Everything's ready. Home. The word carried different meaning now, not her cramped apartment or even the guest rooms at the estate. Home was wherever the 3 of them were together. Okay, Lena said, leaning back against his warmth. Noah will be excited. He's been asking about his art supplies. Adrian's chest rumbled with quiet laughter. Of course he has. Elena texted me yesterday. Apparently she's converted one of the sitting rooms into a proper art studio for him, complete with an easel and those fancy paints he mentioned liking. Lena turned in his arms to face him. You told her to do that. I may have made a suggestion. His expression was carefully innocent. The room wasn't being used for anything important. Adrian Russo, you're spoiling him. Is that a problem? She thought about it, about Noah's growing smiles and the way he'd started standing straighter, more confident, about how he'd begun attempting words with his therapist, small sounds that might someday become speech again. No, she said softly. It's not a problem. Just don't let him take advantage. I won't. Adrian's hand settled on her waist, his thumbs tracing small circles through the fabric of her sweater. But I'm going to give him everything I can, everything I didn't have at his age. Stability, safety, someone who shows up. Is that wrong? It's perfect. Lena reached up to touch his face, feeling the slight roughness of stubble. You're perfect. With him. With us. I'm far from perfect. You're perfect for us. That's what matters. He kissed her then, slow and deep, and Lena let herself fall into it, into him, into this new reality where she could love someone dangerous and gentle all at once, where protection came with tenderness instead of control. They drove back to the estate that afternoon, Noah chattering in his own way from the back seat, pointing at things, making expressive gestures that Lena had learned to interpret. He was excited about his new art studio, about seeing Elena and Marcus again, about the normalcy of returning to the place that had become home. The estate looked different to Lena now. Not imposing or frightening, but welcoming. The gates opened at their approach, security waving them through with respectful nods. The house itself seemed to glow in the afternoon light, warm and solid and safe. Elena met them at the door, her face lighting up when she saw Noah. "There's my favorite artist. Come see what we've set up for you." Noah shot Lena a questioning look. She nodded permission, and he was off, racing after Elena with the kind of childish enthusiasm she hadn't seen from him in months. "He's healing," Adrian observed, watching Noah disappear into the house. "Thanks to you. Thanks to safety. Thanks to time. Thanks to knowing the threats are gone." Adrian took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "I can't take credit for his strength. But you gave him the space to find it again." They followed Noah inside to discover that Elena hadn't just converted a sitting room, she'd transformed it into a child's creative paradise. North-facing windows for perfect natural light, surfaces at the right height for an 8-year-old, supplies organized in a way that made sense for small hands. Even the floor had been covered with protective materials, so Noah could make as much mess as he wanted without worry. Noah stood in the center of it all, turning in slow circles, his eyes huge with wonder. "Do you like it?" Adrian asked, crouching down to Noah's level. The boy nodded vigorously, then did something that made Lena's breath catch. He threw his arms around Adrian's neck, hugging him tight. Adrian froze for just a moment, clearly surprised, before his arms came up to return the embrace. When he looked up at Lena over Noah's shoulder, there were tears in his eyes. "You're welcome," he said softly to Noah. "Anytime you want to create something, this space is yours." That evening fell into a rhythm that was becoming familiar. Dinner together, conversation flowing easily, Noah engaged in ways he hadn't been for so long. After the meal, while Noah worked on a new drawing at the kitchen table, Adrian pulled Lena aside. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice serious. "About my business. About who I really am." Lena's stomach tightened. "Okay." He led her to his office, closing the door behind them. The room felt different at night. Shadows pooling in corners, the desk lamp creating a circle of warm light. "I've spent 15 years building an empire," Adrian began, pacing in front of the windows. "Construction, real estate, shipping, all legitimate on paper. But underneath," he paused, choosing his words carefully. "Underneath, there are things that operate in the gray areas. Contracts that get won because I have leverage. Competitors who back down because they know what challenging me means. Money that flows through channels the IRS doesn't see." "I know," Lena said quietly. He turned to look at her. "You know?" "I'm not naive, Adrian. I know what people say about you. I know you have power that goes beyond business success." She moved closer to him. "I also know you've never lied to me, never pretended to be something you're not. Doesn't it bother you, knowing what I've done? What bothers me is thinking about the men who use their power to hurt people, who beat women and terrorize children, who take and take without giving anything back." Lena stopped in front of him, meeting his eyes directly. "You're not that kind of man. You use your power to protect, to build, to take care of the people who depend on you." "I've hurt people, Lena. I've made people disappear when they became problems, people who chose this life, people who knew the risks and made their choices." Her voice was steady, certain. "You've never hurt someone innocent, never targeted someone who couldn't fight back. That matters." Adrian stared at her like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. "How can you accept this so easily?" "Because I've seen who you are when no one's watching. I've seen how you are with Noah, patient and kind and present. I've seen how you treat your people with respect and fairness. I've seen the man underneath the reputation." She took his hands in hers. "I'm choosing to love all of you, Adrian, not just the parts that are easy." "You might regret that choice someday." "I don't think I will," Lena smiled slightly. "Besides, it's too late now. I'm already in too deep." He pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. "I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you, both of you. You already do." They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other in the quiet of his office while the world moved on outside. When they finally pulled apart, Adrian's expression had shifted to something more vulnerable. "There's something else," he said. "Something I need to ask you." "What is it?" "Noah's birthday is in 3 weeks. Elena mentioned it. She'd seen his school records." Adrian moved back to his desk, opening a drawer and pulling out a folder. "I've been thinking about doing something special, something to mark this new chapter in his life." He handed her the folder. Inside were documents, legal documents with official seals and dense paragraphs of text. Lena scanned them, her heart beginning to race as she understood what she was reading. These are adoption papers. Preliminary ones. Nothing filed yet." Adrian's voice was careful, controlled. "I know it's fast. I know we've only been together a short time, but I want to make it official. I want to legally become his father, give him my name, my protection, everything I have." He paused. "If you'll let me." Lena's hands trembled as she held the papers. This was huge. This was forever. This was Adrian asking to bind himself to them in the most permanent way possible. "What about us?" she asked quietly. "What about you and me?" "That's the other question I wanted to ask." Adrian reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I'm doing this backward, I know. I should probably date you for a year, propose romantically, plan a big wedding. But I've never been good at following rules, and I know what I want." He opened the box to reveal a ring, elegant, simple, perfect. "Marry me, Lena. Be my wife. Let me be Noah's father. Let us be a real family." The world seemed to stop. Lena stared at the ring, at Adrian's hopeful, nervous expression, at the adoption papers still in her hands. This was everything she'd never dared to dream of: safety, love, a future that didn't involve running or hiding or fear. "It's too fast," she whispered. "I know. People will say we're crazy. Probably. We've only known each other 2 months. 10 weeks? 3 days." Adrian's lips quirked. "Not that I'm counting." Despite everything, Lena laughed. "You're counting. I've counted every day since you walked into my life and made me want things I thought I'd lost the right to want." He took a step closer. "I know it's fast. I know it's unconventional. But when you've lived the life I have, when you've seen how quickly everything can be taken away, you learn not to waste time on things that matter. And you matter, Lena. You and Noah matter more than anything else in this world." Lena looked down at the ring again, her vision blurring with tears. "My sister used to tell me that when you know, you know. That real love doesn't need time to prove itself. It just is. And do you know?" She looked up at him, this complicated, dangerous, beautiful man who'd saved her life and stolen her heart in equal measure. "Yes, I know." "Then say yes." "Yes." The word came out choked with emotion. Yes to marriage. Yes to the adoption. Yes to all of it. Adrian's entire face transformed with joy. He slid the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, like he'd somehow known, and then pulled her into a kiss that tasted like relief and promise and home. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lena pressed her forehead against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "We should tell Noah," she said. "How do you think he'll react?" "I think he'll be thrilled. You've already been more of a father to him than anyone else ever was." Lena pulled back to look at Adrian. "But we should make sure he understands what it means, that it's permanent, that you're not going anywhere." "I'm never going anywhere." Adrian's voice was fierce. "That's a promise I intend to keep." They found Noah still in the kitchen, now working on what appeared to be a portrait. He looked up as they entered, his expression curious. Lena sat down beside him, while Adrian pulled up a chair on his other side. "Noah, baby, we need to talk to you about something important." Noah set down his marker, giving them his full attention. "You know how we've been living here with Adrian?" Lena began carefully. "How he's been taking care of us and keeping us safe." Noah nodded. "Well, we've decided we want to make it official, permanent." She glanced at Adrian, who picked up the thread. "I asked your Aunt Lena to marry me," Adrian said, speaking directly to Noah. "And she said yes, which means we're going to be a family, a real, legal family." Noah's eyes widened. He looked between them, processing. "There's more," Lena continued. "If you want, and only if you want, Adrian would like to adopt you, to become your dad legally." It wouldn't mean forgetting your parents or the love they gave you. It would just mean adding someone new who loves you and wants to take care of you. For a long moment, Noah just stared at them. Then he turned to his drawing, picking up his marker. With careful, deliberate strokes, he drew 3 figures holding hands, a man, a woman, and a child. Above them, he wrote in block letters, family. Then he pointed at Adrian and opened his mouth. Lena held her breath, waiting, hoping. Dad? The word came out rough, uncertain, like a muscle long unused, but it was there, real, spoken. Adrian's eyes flooded with tears. Yes, if you want me to be. Noah nodded vigorously, then launched himself at Adrian, wrapping his arms around him tight. Dad, he said again, more confidently this time. Lena watched them through her own tears. This moment she'd never expected. Her nephew finding his voice again, calling someone dad, choosing family after losing everything. It was beautiful and heartbreaking and perfect all at once. Adrian held Noah close, one hand cupping the back of his head. I've got you, he murmured. Forever. You're my son now, and I'm never letting go. The 3 of them sat there in the kitchen, holding each other, while outside the sunset and stars began to emerge. They'd all been broken in different ways. Lena by abuse, Noah by loss, Adrian by a childhood stolen too soon. But somehow, impossibly, they'd found each other. And in finding each other, they'd found a way to heal. The next weeks were a whirlwind of planning and paperwork. Lawyers handling the adoption, Adrian insisting on doing everything properly, legally, permanently. A small, private wedding planned for the estate gardens. Nothing elaborate, just the people who mattered. Noah started speech therapy in earnest, his words coming more frequently now, whole sentences emerging in fits and starts. Lena quit her job at Marcello's, though Marco understood and threw her a farewell party that made her cry. She'd missed the work, missed the normalcy of it, but Adrian had pointed out that she didn't need to work if she didn't want to. She could focus on Noah, on building their new life, on figuring out who she wanted to be now that survival wasn't her only goal. Elena helped with wedding preparations, her excitement infectious. Marcus took Noah shopping for a suit for the ceremony, returning with a proud 8-year-old who insisted on showing Lena every detail. The house filled with laughter and planning and the kind of hope Lena had thought she'd lost forever. 3 days before the wedding, Lena woke to find Adrian already up, standing at the window of their bedroom. They'd been sharing a room for 2 weeks now, a natural progression that felt right. She moved to join him, wrapping her arms around his waist from behind. Couldn't sleep? She asked. Just thinking. His hand covered hers. About how different my life was 6 months ago. How empty this house felt. How I'd convinced myself I was better off alone. And now? Now I can't imagine going back to that. Can't imagine this house without Noah's laughter, or your voice, or the feeling of coming home to people who actually want me here. He turned in her arms to face her. You saved me, Lena. Both of you. You gave me something to live for beyond business and power and survival. You saved us first. Maybe we saved each other. She kissed him softly. Definitely that. The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful, the gardens transformed with simple white flowers and ribbons that caught the breeze. The guest list was small. Elena and Marcus, a few of Adrian's most trusted associates, Mrs. Patterson from Noah's school, who'd become a friend. No press, no publicity, just an intimate celebration of something rare and precious. Lena wore a dress that Elena had helped her choose, ivory silk that flowed like water, elegant without being ostentatious. Noah wore his new suit with pride, carrying the rings on a small pillow, and Adrian stood at the makeshift altar in the garden, looking at her like she'd hung the stars. The ceremony itself was brief, simple vows, heartfelt promises, and when the officiant declared them married, Adrian kissed her with a tenderness that made the small crowd sigh. But the moment that mattered most came after, when the officiant called Noah forward. Adrian knelt down to the boy's level, taking his small hands. Noah Carter, he said clearly, from this day forward, you are Noah Russo. You are my son, and I am your father. I promise to protect you, guide you, and love you for as long as I live. Do you accept this? Noah's response was loud and clear, his voice growing stronger every day. Yes, Dad. I accept. The adoption papers were signed right there in the garden, witnesses adding their names, making it legal and binding. When it was done, Adrian lifted Noah into his arms, holding him close while their guests applauded. Lena watched them, her husband and her son, her family, and felt something shift in her chest. All the pain of the past, all the fear and running and terror, it didn't disappear. But it became part of a larger story, one that included this moment, this joy, this love that had emerged from darkness. The reception was simple but perfect. Food and music and dancing on the lawn while the sun set behind them. Noah taught Adrian his favorite dance moves from school, both of them laughing at their own awkwardness. Marcus gave a toast that was surprisingly emotional, talking about how he'd watched Adrian build walls around himself for years, and how amazing it was to see them finally come down. As night fell and guests began to leave, Lena found herself alone with Adrian on the terrace overlooking the gardens. He pulled her close, swaying gently to music only they could hear. "Happy?" he asked. Deliriously. She rested her head on his shoulder. "You?" "More than I thought possible." His hand splayed across her lower back. "I keep waiting to wake up, for this to be a dream. It's real. We're real." "I know. That's what scares me sometimes, knowing how much I have to lose now." Lena pulled back to look at him. "You're not going to lose us. We're not going anywhere. People have said that before, and I'm not other people." She cupped his face in her hands. "I'm your wife. Noah is your son. We chose this. We chose you. That doesn't change just because life gets hard or scary." "Promise?" "I promise." She kissed him softly. "For better or worse, remember? We just said those vows." Adrian's smile was brilliant in the darkness. "Best decision I ever made." "Marrying me?" "Stepping into that alley, saving you, starting this whole chain of events that led us here." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "Every choice, every moment. It was all worth it to have this, to have you." They stood there under the stars holding each other, while inside the house Noah slept peacefully in his own room. Their family, imperfect and unconventional and absolutely right. The past would always be there, Lena's scars, Noah's loss, Adrian's dark deeds. But it didn't define them anymore. They were writing a new story now, one built on trust and healing and the radical choice to love despite everything they'd survived. And as Lena felt Adrian's heart beat steady against hers, she knew with absolute certainty that they were going to be okay. More than okay. They were going to be happy. Together, they'd found what they'd all been searching for without knowing it. They'd found home. The months that followed their wedding settled into something Lena had never experienced before. Peace. Real, lasting peace that didn't come with the constant vigilance of waiting for the other shoe to drop. She woke each morning in Adrian's arms, listened to Noah's voice growing stronger and more confident as he chattered through breakfast, and allowed herself to believe that this happiness might actually last. Spring turned to summer, and the estate grounds exploded with color. Noah spent hours in the gardens with Elena, learning the names of flowers and plants, his sketchbook always nearby to capture whatever caught his attention. His art had evolved from dark, violent scribbles to vibrant landscapes and portraits that his teachers called remarkable for his age. "He has real talent," Adrian said one evening, watching through the window as Noah painted at his easel in the garden. "We should think about getting him proper instruction, maybe a private tutor who specializes in young artists." Lena leaned against him, smiling at the casual way Adrian had embraced fatherhood. "You're going to spoil him rotten." "That's what fathers do, isn't it? Spoil their children?" Adrian wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. "Besides, he deserves it. After everything he's been through, he deserves every good thing we can give him." "We," Lena repeated softly. "I love how you say we now, like you've always been his father." "I feel like I have been. The legal papers just made it official." Adrian pressed a kiss to her temple. "He called me dad again today, at breakfast. Asked me to help him with his math homework." "And did you?" "Tried to. Turns out third-grade math is harder than I remembered." His chest rumbled with laughter. "We figured it out together eventually." These were the moments Lena treasured most. The ordinary, everyday experiences that made up a family. Homework help and garden walks and dinners where they talked about their days. It was so far removed from the violence that had brought them together that sometimes it felt like a dream. But reality had a way of intruding, even into paradise. It came in the form of a phone call on a Tuesday afternoon. Lena was in the kitchen with Elena discussing meal plans for the week when Marcus appeared in the doorway. His expression was carefully neutral, but Lena had learned to read the subtle tension in his shoulders. "Mrs. Russo, Mr. Russo needs to see you in his office." The formal address sent a chill down her spine. Marcus only called her Mrs. Russo when something was wrong. She found Adrian at his desk, staring at his computer screen with an expression that made her stomach drop. He looked up as she entered, and she saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen in months, the cold calculation of a man preparing for war. "What's wrong?" she asked, closing the door behind her. "Derek's dead." The words hit her like a physical blow. Lena sank into the chair across from his desk, trying to process. "What? How?" "Prison fight, officially." Adrian's tone was flat, devoid of emotion. "Unofficially, someone paid to have it arranged. Someone with resources and connections and a vendetta." "Who?" "His family. His cousins on his mother's side, the Moretti family." Adrian turned his monitor so she could see the screen. It displayed a news article about Derek's death, accompanied by a photo that made her blood run cold. "They're minor players in the organization world, but they have reach. And they blame me for Derek's imprisonment and death." Lena's hands clenched in her lap. "But Derek attacked us. He violated his parole. He tried to kill us. Facts don't matter to people looking for revenge." Adrian stood, moving to the window. "They see it as me overstepping, using my power to destroy one of their own. And now they want payback." "What kind of payback?" "The kind that puts you and Noah in danger." Fear spiked through her, sharp and immediate. "Have they made threats?" "Not directly, but my sources indicate they're planning something. I don't have details yet, but—" Adrian's jaw tightened. "I won't take chances. Not with you two." Lena rose and moved to stand beside him, taking his hand. "What do we do?" "I handle it, like I always do." His fingers tightened around hers. "But it might get ugly, Lena. I might have to do things, make choices that—" "I know what you're capable of," she interrupted quietly. "And I know why you do it. To protect us. To protect what we've built." "You say that now, but when it's done, when you see what I'm willing to do to keep you safe, I'll still love you." Lena turned him to face her. "Adrian, I went into this with my eyes open. I knew who you were, what your world looked like. That hasn't changed just because we've had a few peaceful months." He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. "I don't want this touching you, either of you. You deserve better than being dragged into mob politics and vendettas. We deserve you, and you come with all of this." She pulled back to meet his eyes. "So we face it together, as a family." The words seemed to steady him. He nodded slowly, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "Together." That evening at dinner, Noah picked up on the tension immediately. His dark eyes moved between Lena and Adrian, reading the unspoken worry in their expressions. "Something wrong?" he asked, his speech still sometimes halting but growing more fluent every day. Adrian and Lena exchanged a glance. They'd agreed not to shelter Noah from reality. He'd seen too much already to believe in fairy tales, but finding the right words was challenging. "There might be some trouble coming," Adrian said carefully. "Some people who are angry at me because of what happened with your Uncle Derek." Noah's expression shuddered slightly at the mention of Derek, but he didn't look away. "Are they going to hurt us?" "No." Adrian's voice was absolute. "I won't let that happen. But we might need to be extra careful for a while. More security, less going out, that kind of thing." "Like before?" Noah's hand found Lena's under the table. "When we had to go to the beach house?" "Maybe not quite that extreme," Lena assured him. "But yes, similar precautions." Noah was quiet for a moment, processing. Then he looked at Adrian with an expression far too old for his 9 years. "Will you have to hurt people? To keep us safe?" The question hung in the air. Adrian didn't look away, didn't soften the truth. "Possibly," he admitted, "if they don't give me another choice." "Okay." Noah's voice was small but steady. "I understand." After dinner, Lena found Noah in his art studio, painting with furious intensity. The canvas was a storm of dark colors, blacks and deep blues and slashes of red. Violence expressed through art instead of words. "Want to talk about it?" she asked, sitting on the floor beside his easel. Noah's brush paused. "I thought we were safe now. I thought it was over." "I know, baby. I thought so too. Why can't they just leave us alone?" His voice cracked with frustration. "Derek hurt us. He was bad. Why do they care that he's gone?" "Because people are complicated. They remember the version of Derek they knew. Maybe someone who was kind to them, or family they loved. They don't see the monster he became." Lena pulled Noah into her lap, even though he was getting too big for it. "But Adrian is right. He won't let them hurt us." "What if something happens to him?" Noah's biggest fear finally voiced. "What if he gets hurt protecting us?" "Then we trust that he knows what he's doing, and we stay strong for each other, the way we always have." She kissed the top of his head. "But I don't think anything's going to happen to your dad. He's very good at what he does." Noah was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I love him. Adrian, Dad. I love him like I love my first dad." Lena's throat tightened with emotion. "I know, and he loves you too, so much. I don't want to lose another dad. You won't, I promise you won't." It was a promise she hoped she could keep. The next week was tense. Adrian increased security around the estate. More guards, more cameras, protocols that felt excessive but necessary. Marcus became a constant shadow whenever Lena or Noah left the property. Even trips to school required a full security detail. Noah handled it better than Lena expected, his resilience born from too much practice. But she saw the way his shoulders tensed when car doors slammed, the way his eyes tracked exits in every room, old habits dying hard. Adrian threw himself into handling the Moretti problem with ruthless efficiency. Late-night meetings in his office, phone calls that lasted hours, departures at odd times with Marcus and other men whose names Lena didn't know. She didn't ask for details, understanding that ignorance offered her a layer of protection, plausible deniability, should it ever come to that. But she saw the toll it took on him, the exhaustion in his eyes, the tension that never quite left his shoulders, the way he held her a little tighter at night like she might disappear. "Talk to me," she said one night as they lay in bed, his body rigid beside hers. "Tell me what's going through your head." "I'm trying to find a solution that doesn't end in bloodshed," Adrian admitted quietly. "The Morettis want compensation for Derek's death. Money, territory, acknowledgement of wrongdoing. But if I give in, it shows weakness. Other families will see it as an opportunity to push boundaries, test limits. And if you don't give in, then it becomes war. People die. Maybe people who don't deserve it. Collateral damage. Innocent bystanders." His hand found hers in the darkness. "I've spent years building a reputation as someone you don't cross. But that reputation was built on being willing to do terrible things when necessary. Now I have you and Noah, and the idea of you seeing me that way, I see you exactly as you are," Lena interrupted. "A man doing what he has to do to protect his family. That doesn't make you a monster, Adrian. It makes you human. Some of the things I've done are in the past, and they don't define who you are now." She rolled to face him, cupping his jaw. "You're a good father, a good husband, a good man who sometimes has to make hard choices. I can hold all of those truths at once." He kissed her then, desperate and seeking, like she was his anchor in a storm. And maybe she was. Maybe they were each other's anchors, keeping one another grounded when the world threatened to pull them under. The resolution came 2 weeks later, though not in the way anyone expected. Lena was in the garden with Noah, watching him sketch the roses that climbed the estate's stone walls, when Marcus appeared. His expression was carefully controlled, but there was something in his eyes. Relief, maybe, or satisfaction. "Mrs. Russo, Mr. Russo asked me to bring you to his office. Both of you." Noah looked up from his sketchbook, worry flashing across his features. Lena took his hand, squeezing reassurance she wasn't entirely sure she felt. They found Adrian standing by the window, hands in his pockets, looking more relaxed than he had in weeks. He turned as they entered, and his smile was genuine. "It's over," he said simply. "What's over?" Lena asked. "The Moretti problem. I found a solution." Adrian moved to his desk, pulling out a folder. "Antonio Moretti, the family patriarch, has a grandson, 17 years old, brilliant kid, got accepted to MIT but couldn't afford it. The family's been scrambling to find the money. You're paying for his education, Lena guessed. Full ride. 4 years, plus graduate school if he wants it. Plus an internship at one of my legitimate companies when he graduates. Adrian's expression was almost smug. I framed it as an investment in the next generation, a show of respect for the Moretti family legacy. Antonio gets to save face, his grandson gets opportunities he'd never have otherwise, and I get to end this without violence. That's brilliant, Lena breathed. It's also strategic. The kid will be loyal to me, grateful for the opportunity. In 10 years, when he's running the family business, I'll have an ally instead of an enemy. Adrian shrugged. Long-term thinking. Noah had been listening quietly, processing. So no one has to get hurt? No one has to get hurt, Adrian confirmed, kneeling down to Noah's level. Sometimes the best solution isn't the most violent one. Sometimes you can win by giving people what they actually need instead of what they think they want. That's smart. Thank you. I thought so too. Adrian ruffled Noah's hair affectionately. Now, I believe someone promised to teach me about perspective in drawing today. Noah's face lit up. You remembered. Of course I remembered. Come on, show me this vanishing point thing you keep talking about. Lena watched them head to Noah's studio together, her heart so full it ached. This was the man the world feared, solving problems with strategy instead of violence, building alliances instead of burning bridges, choosing the hard path of diplomacy because it meant his family stayed safe and whole. That night, after Noah was asleep and the house had settled into quiet, Lena found Adrian on the terrace. The summer air was warm, full of the scent of flowers and the distant sound of fountains. You did good today, she said, sliding her arms around his waist from behind. I did what was necessary. You did what was right. There's a difference. She rested her cheek against his back. You could have handled it the other way. You had the power, the resources, the justification, but you chose peace instead. For you, for Noah, for the life we're building. Adrian turned in her arms to face her. I'm tired of violence being my first solution. Tired of ruling through fear. I want to be the man Noah thinks I am. The man you believe I can be. You already are that man. I'm trying to be. He kissed her forehead. Every day. I'm trying. They stood there in the darkness, holding each other, while above them stars wheeled in their ancient patterns. The past would always be there, the violence, the fear, the choices made in darkness, but it no longer controlled them. 6 months later, Lena stood in the bathroom of their suite, staring at a pregnancy test with shaking hands. 2 pink lines, clear and undeniable. She was pregnant. Fear and joy warred inside her. They hadn't been trying, but they hadn't been preventing either. Just letting life unfold naturally, trusting that whatever happened, they'd handle it together. But a baby, another life depending on them. Another person to protect in a world that could still be dangerous despite Adrian's best efforts. She found him in his office, working on contracts for a new development project. He looked up as she entered, his expression shifting to concern when he saw her face. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. At least, I don't think it is. Lena crossed to him, holding out the test. I'm pregnant. Adrian stared at the test for a long moment. Then his eyes rose to meet hers, and she saw wonder there, pure, unfiltered wonder. You're sure? As sure as 2 pink lines can make me. He stood slowly, like he was afraid sudden movement might shatter the moment. We're having a baby. Yes. Lena watched his face carefully, trying to gauge his reaction. Are you? I'm terrified, he admitted, and thrilled, and completely unprepared, and so happy. His hands came up to cup her face. We're having a baby. We are. Lena laughed, feeling tears slip down her cheeks. We're having a baby. Adrian kissed her then, soft and reverent, like she was something precious. When they broke apart, both of them were crying. Noah's going to lose his mind, Adrian said, laughing through his tears. He's going to be a big brother. Should we tell him now? Absolutely not. Not until we've processed this ourselves. Adrian pulled her close, his hand splaying across her still flat stomach. Let me have a few days to panic in private first. But of course, they told Noah that very evening at dinner, unable to contain the news. His reaction was everything they could have hoped for, shock giving way to excitement, questions tumbling over themselves, plans already forming for how he'd be the best big brother ever. "Can I teach them to paint?" he asked, eyes shining. "When they're big enough?" "You can teach them whatever you want," Lena assured him. "And they'll call me their brother? For real?" "For real." Adrian reached across the table to take Noah's hand. "You'll be their big brother, just like you're my son. Legal, official, permanent." Noah beamed and Lena saw the last shadows finally leave his eyes. He was fully theirs now, fully part of this family they'd built from broken pieces. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Lena bloomed in ways that made Adrian stare at her like she'd hung the moon. Noah became fiercely protective, insisting on carrying anything heavier than a book, checking on her constantly, talking to her belly about all the things he'd teach his little sibling. They turned one of the guest rooms into a nursery, Noah helping choose colors and furniture. He painted a mural on one wall, a family of 4 holding hands under a bright sun, surrounded by flowers and birds and all the beauty he could imagine. "It's perfect," Lena said, standing in the doorway with Adrian, his arm around her expanding waist. "You're so talented, Noah." "I wanted the baby to know they're loved," Noah said seriously. "From the very beginning, that they're part of our family." "They'll know," Adrian promised. "We'll make sure they always know." Winter came, and with it, the final countdown to the baby's arrival. Lena waddled through the estate, her body heavy with life, while Adrian fussed over her in ways that were endearing and occasionally annoying. Noah read books to her belly, convinced the baby could hear him and should know his voice. The night Lena went into labor, it was snowing, soft flakes drifting down outside the windows, coating the world in white. Noah was asleep, peaceful in his bed, while Adrian paced beside Lena, timing contractions. "We should go to the hospital," he said for the 3rd time. "We have time," Lena assured him, breathing through another contraction. "First babies take a while." "What if this one doesn't? What if—" "Adrian." She caught his hand, pulling him to sit beside her. "Breathe, it's going to be fine. I've faced down mobsters and politicians and men with guns, and none of it scared me as much as this," he admitted. "Because you love us. Fear comes with love." "I do love you, all of you." His hand rested on her belly, feeling the life moving inside. "So much it terrifies me." 4 hours later, they were at the hospital. 6 hours after that, as dawn broke over the city, a baby's cry filled the delivery room. A girl. Perfect and tiny, and theirs. Adrian cut the cord with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. When the nurse placed the baby in Lena's arms, wrapped in pink blankets, the world seemed to stop. "She's beautiful," Adrian whispered, touching one impossibly small hand. "She's perfect." "She is." Lena kissed her daughter's forehead, breathing in that distinctive newborn smell. "Hello, little one. We've been waiting for you." They named her Sarah, after Lena's sister. Sarah Marie Russo, with her father's dark hair and her mother's nose and a cry that could wake the dead. When they brought her home 3 days later, Noah was waiting on the front steps, practically vibrating with excitement. Elena stood behind him, beaming, while Marcus looked suspiciously misty-eyed. "Can I hold her?" Noah asked as soon as they were through the door. "Of course." Adrian helped Noah settle on the couch, then carefully placed Sarah in his arms. "Support her head, just like we practiced." Noah held his sister with reverent care, staring down at her like she was made of glass. "Hi, Sarah. I'm your big brother. I'm going to teach you everything." Sarah yawned, tiny and perfect, and Noah's entire face lit up. "She likes me already. Did you see?" She looked right at me. "She definitely did," Lena agreed, sitting beside them. "You're going to be an amazing big brother." And he was. In the months that followed, Noah took his role seriously. He helped with diaper changes, sang to Sarah when she cried, showed her his artwork, and told her stories. He was gentle and patient and proud, this boy who'd been through so much finding joy in caring for someone smaller and more vulnerable. Adrian transformed into a devoted father all over again. He got up for midnight feedings, changed diapers without complaint, paced the floors when Sarah was fussy. Lena would wake sometimes to find him standing by the nursery window, holding his daughter, talking to her in low tones about everything and nothing. One night, she found him like that. Sarah asleep on his shoulder, Adrian's hand spread wide across her tiny back. "What are you telling her?" Lena asked softly from the doorway. "About her brother. About you. About how lucky she is to have been born into a family that loves her." Adrian looked up, his expression soft in the dim nursery light. "About how I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure she's safe and happy and knows she's cherished. She's going to be so spoiled." "Absolutely." Adrian's smile was unrepentant. "Both my children are going to be spoiled rotten. I've decided that's my prerogative as a father." Lena moved to stand beside him, looking down at their daughter. "Do you ever think about how different life could have been if you hadn't been in that alley that night?" "All the time." Adrian's arm came around her waist. "I think about how close I came to missing all of this. You, Noah, Sarah. This whole life I didn't know I wanted until I had it. Any regrets?" "Not a single one." Time moved forward the way it always did. Sarah grew from infant to toddler, her personality emerging bright and fierce. Noah started middle school, his confidence growing along with his artistic talent. Adrian's businesses thrived, his reputation shifting from feared enforcer to respected businessman as he continued choosing diplomacy over violence. And Lena found her place in their world, not as someone who needed protecting anymore, but as an equal partner in building the life they shared. She volunteered at Noah's school, joined the board of a children's charity, helped Adrian navigate social situations that required charm instead of intimidation. They were happy. Genuinely, completely happy in a way that none of them had expected to find. On the day of Noah's 13th birthday, 3 years after Sarah's birth, the family gathered in the garden for a celebration. Friends from school, teachers, Marcus and Elena, who'd become family. Laughter and music, and the kind of joy that came from being surrounded by people who mattered. Lena stood watching from the terrace, Adrian beside her, Sarah playing nearby with her favorite stuffed animal. "What are you thinking?" Adrian asked, following her gaze to where Noah was laughing with his friends. "That we made it. Against all odds, through everything that tried to break us, we actually made it." "Oh." She leaned into his warmth. "We built something real." "We did." Adrian kissed the top of her head. "And we're going to keep building it. Keep making it better. Keep giving our children reasons to believe the world can be good. Even though you know better?" "Especially because I know better." His arms tightened around her. "I've seen the worst of what people can do. But I've also seen the best. The way you fought for Noah. The way he found his voice again. The way Sarah fills every room with light. That's what I choose to focus on now." Sarah toddled over to them, her dark curls bouncing, demanding to be picked up. Adrian scooped her into his arms, and she immediately wrapped her small arms around his neck. "Love you, Daddy," she said clearly. "I love you too, Princess." Noah appeared moments later, grinning. "Mom, Dad, everyone's waiting for cake." My mom and dad. The titles they'd earned through love and commitment and showing up day after day. "Then let's not keep them waiting," Lena said, taking Noah's hand while Adrian carried Sarah. They walked together into the garden, into the celebration, into the life they'd built from darkness and violence and trauma. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. There were still hard days, still moments when the past crept in, still nights when Lena woke from nightmares of Derek's hands around her throat, or when Adrian tensed at unexpected sounds, or when Noah's silence returned briefly under stress. But they faced those moments together, as a family, and that made all the difference. Years later, Lena would look back on this time as the moment she finally understood what her sister had meant about knowing when you know. Love wasn't always gentle or easy or safe. Sometimes it was fierce and complicated and born from the worst circumstances imaginable, but it was real. And it was worth every hard choice, every moment of fear, every leap of faith it took to get there. Standing in the garden surrounded by family, watching her husband dance with their daughter while their son laughed with friends, Lena felt something she'd thought she'd lost forever in that dark alley behind a restaurant. Hope. Real, lasting hope for the future. And in the end, that was everything.